Good morning. Thank you very much for being here today. My name is Steve. So this is the first event that we have put on in Manchester. So we'd run a couple in London before. I'd only moved up here in September. I knew no one really, apart from maybe Callum and a couple of other people before moving up. So quite happy with the turnout, to be fair. And Joe, our lovely videographer, asked me the other week when we were talking about putting on the event and stuff. He's like, why are you doing this? What's the reason? So yeah, it got me thinking about that. And really, the aim with this was to create a community, and I know that phrase is overused and kind of laboured a bit in terms of B2B marketing, but it would be good to get a group of B2B marketers together, kind of share what's working, what's not, and that's why we're here today. So yeah, without further ado, with our wonderful panel, if you just introduce yourselves, I suppose you can start, Joe, and then we go up and down the line. Just a bit of introduction, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, great. So my name's Joe Stallion, and I'm one of the directors at Solvi Digital. We're an industrial marketing agency that work with manufacturers, suppliers, distributors across the UK, and we help them solve a number of marketing challenges, from getting in front of more of their ideal customers to closing more deals and building their pipeline.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Emma. I am head of marketing at Aire Logic. We're an employee-owned tech-for-good IT consultancy, although everyone hates the word IT consultancy now, so we'll just say tech agency. So we primarily work with the NHS, the higher education sector, renewables.
Hey everybody, I'm Kyle Daniels. I'm the head of marketing for Assimilate and Bundle. That's like two companies I paid twice to be here. Did you guys not pay? Really quickly, Assimilate is a data consultancy, been going for about 20 years-ish or so. Bundle is an AI-driven insights platform, that's like AI. We're going to come in and take it away from LinkedIn. Generally speaking, I have been in marketing for about 15 years, heavy into podcasting, so started podcasting probably about 8 years, so done about 500 episodes, about 500,000 listeners, give or take, over that time, covering mainly tech and digital and stuff like that.
Nice.
Beat that, mate.
Damn, see. Right, the challenge is on, Kyle. Hi, I'm Emily Newstead, and I help companies nail their offline marketing. So I think that's going to throw something quite interesting into the mix today. And my company's called Bow Gifts. This is our 11th year. Started on my ironing board. We've now shipped into 40 countries, Kyle. Are we going to be doing this all morning?
I love it.
Tag, pass the baton.
Apart.
I used them recently, they were amazing.
Yeah, that's Kyle's a client. That's good. We promise you we've not planned that. We don't sell crap. The idea and the whole premise behind it is that your offline marketing through the medium of branded merchandise is an extension of your storytelling. So it's something you give to people that lives in their homes, lives in their offices for years to come. It's a walking billboard. So I'm here to say, stop buying it and start getting some really good merch.
Perfect.
I'm your woman from Yorkshire.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
Big up. Nice. All right, perfect. Well, yeah. Emily, to kick us off then, so what have you seen recently with your marketing efforts that has had some good success, or can you share a recent strategy, campaign or tactic that you have seen good results with?
Definitely. I'm going to push back, first of all, with the question I always say to any company who comes to us and says, I want some merch. A lot of businesses treat it as a tick box exercise. They think, right, if I've got that really crap piece of fluffy, sticky feet thing that I can give out at an exhibition, I've done my job. Wrong. You absolutely haven't. So when a company comes to us, the first thing I say to them is, what's the reason that you're making this investment in the first place? And this is what's really fascinating. A business ultimately will then tell you, oh, I'm going to give you a quick story. Hunter's estate agent said, we want to do some branded eye scrapers. So I said to him, great, why? Why do you want to do branded eye scrapers? They said, oh, because we want our clients and prospects to come in and book valuations. Politely, I said to them, how are you getting from an eye scraper to people coming and booking valuations? You have to tell a story. So they went, right, okay, tell me more. We then built this out to a pack. We got a pack that had the kind of de-icer in, it had a little bag, and also we had a card in there. Said you have to have a call to action. You have to tell people what you want to do on the back of it. It had a picture of the person, so it humanised the experience, and then there was a few hashtags and it told people what to do. The next thing that we did, so rather than a sunny day handing out an ice scraper because someone's popped in or you're out there just handing them out in front of your shop, we then tracked the weather. So we watched the forecast, and on the night of a really cold, snowy frost, they went out at 3 a.m. and they put them on 1,000 cars in the local community. They didn't set a single alarm off. 7 a.m. that morning, their social media started going nuts. People were saying, wow, what a great idea. Thank you. You've saved me time. You've saved me money. I thought I was going to have to break my credit card, or I was going to be late for getting to work, taking the kids. A company put the puppet on the car bonnet with a gift, like the products, and they did a little bit of promoting, saying, oh, look, my company's done X, Y, and Z. Their competitors walked in and said, wow, what a simple idea. Why didn't we think of this? And they made the local newspaper. That's how you create noise in a community, because you get people talking about the story. That's how you go beyond saying, here's an ice scraper. And at the minute, companies are in the habit of contacting a business or a supplier like myself going, can you give me a quote for 1,000 ice scrapers? They go, yeah, here you go. They go quote hoard. They go get 4 quotes. They go with the cheapest. Nobody asks them why they're doing it. That's why we're different. That's our tactic. It has to tell a story so that it gets you the return on investment. So don't be quick to just do a checkbox exercise. You wouldn't do it with a digital ad. You wouldn't do it with social media. Okay. There's me 2 cents.
Yeah, Carl, same question for you really. Yeah, so any recent strategy, campaign or tactic, that stood out?
Does it have to be something I've done?
Well, I
hate promoting myself, to be fair, guys, and you're going to notice this for a lot. I was laughing before because when I originally spoke to you guys about this, you gave me the same, you bollocked me, because I think I wanted something crap at an event, and you were like, no. Do you know, I love Paddy Power, I think, sets a standard, I think, on stuff like this. Like, I love their... did anyone see the Asterix campaign they did? Remember when Man City won the title? We're in Manchester, there's probably going to be no Man City fans about. But, yeah, so obviously they won the title, but it was 115 charges pending. And they did a thing where they took Asterixes, like a massive Asterix, to the stadium, and they put it on a load of trophies. And then they did it for other sports as well. I think Paddy Power gets her audience massively. And I think that's a big part of whatever you're doing, understand the audience. So Paddy Power understand their audience aren't readers. They're not even reading the fine print on the bets that they're placing, but they'll watch a video and they'll share it with their mates because they find it funny. And it's the same with us. We just did a campaign with IBM. Is there anyone from IBM in the crowd before I slag them off? Is this going live? No, I'm not. They were all right, but they're a nightmare with marketing because they've got loads of people in marketing. They're all over the place. So actually trying to get them to do something and line up on a campaign is a nightmare. But one of the things we did with those guys was we've got a partner with some people being a tech company. IBM were one of the ones that pulled the short straw with us, and they wanted to do a white paper or an ebook or something like that, which is great, but only people from IBM read those things. The audience doesn't. So we went into their innovation studio in London and we filmed with them. So we just did a full day's filming, 7 episodes. I think it was like 24 hours after I had head surgery, because I spoke to you like the day before. It was a nightmare. Yeah. But it was great because it was a chance for them to show that they're not some pale, male and stale company, that they actually know what they're talking about, and they've got some amazing things in the background. Stuff that they would never have spoken about in the white paper, they never would have put into a blog or article, stuff that when you ask them on camera, it's hard to move away from. So they've just moved away from facial recognition with the police. They spent like 24 million to get this stuff in place, and now they're saying they're not going to do it anymore because of bad actors. And it's like, they never would have put that on paper in the past. But when you ask them on a thing with 4 or 5 cameras pointing at them, they're not going to not say it. So it's things like that. It's understanding your audience and how they're going to integrate with the stuff you're doing. Once we'd done the episodes, in like 20 minutes, it's talking about data governance and AI, and it's a dry topic, like really bad. So what I did, I used a program called Opus.pro. People are probably using it, people know, but it's absolutely amazing. Go and use it if you've not. Just throw some video in it, and it splits it all out into manageable chunks that you can post on social media, and it'll do the posting for you. but it'll actually tell you whether it's going to rank, there's reality to it, what the engagement's going to be like, and it splits it by how you want it to be. And we just picked out the most kind of controversial bits of the episodes and just put those out on social media. And we started doing it on YouTube Shorts, and I think within like 20 minutes, we had like 3,000 views on clips for data governance with IBM. Do you know what I mean? Like this isn't much watch TV. So I think sometimes it's about how can you get that stuff out there that's probably already out there in the public domain. There's loads of white papers about it. There's all this stuff about it. Present it in a different way that the audience can take it in. It doesn't have to be the full 20 minutes, but if it's 30 seconds or a minute and it's engaging and it makes you want to watch the next one, that's enough. It gets people in. Not every bit of content going out there has to lead to a sale. It's just got to lead to some engagement and people knowing a little bit more about it, and then you can feed them more as it goes along.
So with that tool, what was it, Opus Pro?
Opus Pro, yeah. So opus.pro. If you've not used it, just go and check it out. It's what everyone's doing on TikTok. That's why people are putting out like 40 TikToks a day and stuff like that. It's dead easy. It subtitles all your stuff. And I think the cost is like, I think I paid like 90 quid for the year, and it gave like 60,000 credits or something like that. And I mean, your credits, you're talking about using 20 credits at a time and stuff. So you'll, unless you're like trying to be like a 19-year-old TikToker in your bedroom, you're not going to fly through. Unless you are, in which case, good luck.
Perfect. Yeah, Joe, same question. So any campaign or tactics recently that's been working well for you?
Yeah, of course. I think much of what we've heard so far is around like starting and creating conversation amongst your audience, your ideal customers, and potentially also the periphery. In the industries that we work in, they're typically quite traditional, so it's become about doing sort of traditionally used approaches and strategies in a really sharp and positive way. So, for example, recently we brought on board a new fire safety company, and there's a lot of new regulations in that industry, and again, similar to IBM, it's quite a dry topic. It's quite an emotive topic for many people as well in regards to the risks and things that can occur on the back of it. So we recorded a live webinar similar to this. Ash, the videographer, also helped us record that event. And on the back of it, we edited it up. It was more like a live podcast. And we used some really simple strategies to drive traffic to it, one of which was a cold email campaign that was responsible for about 160 of those signups in a 4-week period. And for that industry, that's reasonable numbers. So in summary, I would say, like, yes, it's really about starting the conversation amongst those audiences. But for us, it's been using widely used strategies and approaches in a really polished way together, rather than these like ad hoc tactical activities that can sometimes feel a bit bitty and disjointed.
Yeah, and with that cold email outreach, like what was the process for that, and kind of what tools were you using, and how did you go about that?
Yeah, so with cold email and the sort of connotations that has, everyone kind of cringes a bit and gets a bit uncomfortable. But for us, we found it really effective at top of funnel. So rather than just relying on your traditional, LinkedIn content and content marketing, it's allowed us to pick a really specific audience. We use Apollo.io, really cost-effective way of getting data for like some of the biggest construction companies in the UK that then attended that event on the back of it. So for me, there's as long as there's that real mutual interest there, someone is going to be going to find this topic relevant, and it's going to be a conversation that comes across their desk regularly. Cold email is a completely viable approach to drive traffic to things like webinars.
Yeah, and for that event as well, you were saying, when we spoke before, you were saying parts of it were pre-recorded and then some of it were live. Like, what was the kind of process for that?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a hybrid event. We went up to Newcastle. We recorded a panel discussion of industry experts in a similar way to this. Yet we felt like if we just simply pressed play on that and streamed it at the time of the webinar, the event, there was not much interaction. So what we did is we hired the gentleman who did the moderation for the panel to then be live on the event itself, who was addressing questions, which again created a lot of engagement within that chat, and ensured that the sort of attendance throughout the whole event was up there.
Perfect, nice one. Emma, same question for you. Any campaign or tactic recently that you're proud of?
So I'm a really big fan of events. This can sound really old school, but I know some of the conferences you go to, some of the expos, you've got like 100 companies there. Like, how do you get people to your stand? Obviously through amazing merch. But what I'm a really big fan of and works really well for us is like pre-conference breakfasts. So there's quite a lot at Great Northern, Manchester Central, where you've got people coming from all over the country. They're getting the train up in the morning, or they're staying at like the Travel Lodge around the corner, and they head to the event about 10, and they spend the whole day there, and then they forget every single conversation they've had. They get bags full of leaflets. So what we do for events that are in Manchester, we hire like a room at the Midland. So, for example, we were quoted 60k for an exhibition space at an NHS event. We obviously weren't going to spend that much because you've got 60k for the space and you've got like your 20k for your stand design, you've got your merch costs. So you can be looking at like 80, 90, 100k for some of the really big events. We paid £1,000 to hire a room at the Midland. So that had a hot breakfast. We had, you know, the screen at the back where we had rolling case studies and videos. So we targeted everyone senior that we knew was going to that event. Said, you know, we know you're going to this event. It's a full day of walking around. Come and have breakfast with us first. It wasn't a massive sales pitch. We didn't hand them loads of bump at the end of it. We had about 30 people come. They all networked together. They sat with our senior leaders as well. Just had some really good conversations with them. We asked them, you know, why they were attending the event, what projects they were working on, what were they worried about. Popped all that in our CRM, and then we created content tailored to what these people were concerned about. We created webinars we invited them to. We created articles and thought pieces. We posted on LinkedIn and we emailed them. And we really sort of nurtured that relationship with them through content we knew they were interested in because they told us about us at the event. So from a spend of like £1,000, we've got months worth of content out of it. The people that we speak to are like your CIOs, your CTOs, so they're really senior. So they often don't go to events. They don't have time to watch a lot of webinars if they don't know you. They're not going to like read a white paper because they don't have time. Often the projects we work on, they're like 10, 20, 30 million pound ones, and they take ages. So it's really hard to keep people engaged and nurtured traditionally. So we find doing events like this, you find your really targeted audience, you invite them, your relationship builds, and then it's really easy from those events to continue the relationship. Like, we also do supper clubs, so we get really ridiculously expensive restaurants, so we get a nice meal out of it. And then we have them at like 6 o'clock on a Thursday, they pop along after work. They meet other people, so they sort of turn into user groups where they meet other people in their industry, discuss their problems. We talk to them about, you know, what we can help with, but they're not really big salesy approaches. And then we give them some cool merch at the end as well. Yeah.
So with that, you're saying it's like not so salesy. So then how are you kind of nurturing that prospect after the event, or is there any kind of follow-up email or any kind of bit after you've done the, say, supper club or breakfast event?
Yeah, that's where we get them afterwards. So we get their details when they sign up to the event, or we've met them previously, and then they start getting the emails from us about the content that they want to talk about, because they've told us it's something that they're working on or a pain point they've got. We do invite them to webinars, and then they'll often attend because they go, oh, that's actually really relevant to me. Yeah, it's not an accident, it's relevant because you've told us that's what you want to talk about. And then, you know, from the webinar landing pages, we retarget them. So other things, we retarget them for other invites or little thought pieces. And then they just keep seeing us. And then obviously our sales team will call them. They'll say, oh, did you know we're doing this webinar? Or what did you think of this? Or I saw this in the news. So we start at the slightly more unusual events and then sort of put them into a normal sort of sales funnel from there. But it's hyper-targeted and hyper-personalised from what we've spoken about with them.
Yeah, and for that as well, like that kind of campaign or process, like how important is it to have like a well-defined ideal customer profile?
It's really, really important. Even if we have a new offering or a new product, we always do a value proposition for it. We always find the new ICP, especially with public sector as well. It's often you're working on frameworks rather than traditional lead gen. So you really need to know who your audience is. You need to know if they're listening to podcasts, what podcasts are they, what the sponsorship opportunities. Do they get their news from like the Financial Times, or are they on LinkedIn? Don't shoot me for saying LinkedIn.
No, all good. Valid point.
So again, I think with any sort of marketing, if you don't know who your ideal customer is, you're throwing money into a void, really. You might hit the right people, but there's always a lot of wastage. So for me, I think it's really, really important for any product or any service you offer to really have a good understanding of who your ideal customer is and how to get the most out of your budget.
Yeah, perfect. One for Carl, so I'll let you lead on this one as it's your domain, but you've produced over 500 podcasts, or 600, couldn't get the correct stat for it, but around that range. And you were always saying on one of the other events that you did, like, the world doesn't need another podcast. Why is this?
Takes work away from me. No, do you know something? A lot of people do podcasts and they've got nothing to say, and they feel like they should be doing it just to do it. I think the worst podcasts are those ones where people have gone, just do it. Just do a podcast, and they stick an iPhone on a table and you're listening to it and it sounds like shit, and there's noise in the background and the aircon's going off and the person that's hosting it couldn't carry a conversation half a mile. And it's like, you don't need those podcasts, mate, and your audience don't need them. But if you've got genuinely something to say and there's interesting people that you can have a conversation with, by all means go and do it, but put a little bit of effort into it. Do you know what I mean? Dead easy to get a mic off Amazon, like 50 quid, dead easy. Like, you don't have to film everything that you do. It can literally just be a conversation, it's a podcast. But does your audience also want a podcast? In your space, are there loads of podcasts? If there's loads of podcasts and they're all shit, I don't know if we can swear at this time in the morning.
It's all good.
We're going to do it. You can bleep, can't you? You've got some editors. But that's it. I think sometimes it is that just because everyone else is doing it shouldn't mean that you should be doing it. But if you genuinely think that everything out there isn't great and that you can do it better, then the conversations you have can add value, absolutely go for it. Like, I did the business travel podcast, Clarity. It was the first business travel podcast. And the first episode, you're nodding like you've heard it. Thank you. Who was on episode 3? And the thing with the first episode was going to be completely different. And by kind of like the third or fourth episode, it had just changed. And it wasn't about business travel anymore. It was designed for people that travelled for business to come in and listen to something for an hour. And it was an engaging interview. It gave them some advice and guidance. There was a takeaway at the end of it. The only thing that linked it back to travel was at the end, I did a first, best and worst travel experiences bit on it. That was the only thing. And at the beginning, I referenced that it was Clarity Business Travel. But the rest of it wasn't for us selling Clarity. It wasn't about selling business travel and low fees and blah, blah, bullshit. It was literally for those business travellers to come and listen to something on that long-ass commute down to London, because the company's booked them on for a 9 o'clock meeting and it's a Monday and they didn't put them up the night before, so now they've got to travel at 7 o'clock in the morning and fight their way through London. It's for those people, and it was just something that actually could give them a bit of entertainment through it. It was meant to be funny. When I got Travel Lodge on, I didn't talk to them about the infrastructure of hotels. I talked to them about the guy that drove a bit of equipment through the reception when nobody paid them. I asked him about whether he hated Lenny Henry and whether he could watch, Comic Relief when he used to be on it and stuff. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I would want to listen to. And I think if you do another podcast for the sake of doing it because everyone else is doing it, and you do it at the lowest level, just save your time, just don't do it. Just go and talk to your kids. You know what I mean? don't do a podcast.
So yeah, another question on this one as well. So producing it is one thing, but then promoting it and actually getting people to listen to it is another thing. So what strategies have you found to help with that, to get people to listen to it and to get them to stick around as well?
So again, I think from our point of view, especially from the Clarity side of things, we were the only ones doing it, which was a plus. A lot of our competitors would listen to it because you want to see what kind of people over the fence are doing. But it was about getting the right people on it that would then go and engage with the show after it had come out. There's nothing worse than, like we found with IBM, doing something amazing, getting some really great content, and the person that came on it goes radio silent afterwards and doesn't promote it. It's got to be about them. You're trying to engage a different audience. So it's about them promoting it as well. And they'll tend to promote it if they had a good time on the podcast. They won't promote it if they came on there and felt like you tried to do a gotcha on them and like asked them questions and they weren't prepared for them. And I've never scripted a podcast, 600 episodes. The only one I got close to was Ryan Giggs, but his PR person made us do it. And then I threw the questions away when we started the podcast. And the PR one went white. She was not happy with that. But again, it leads to a better conversation. But they will then promote afterwards because you probably asked them something that they hadn't been asked before, that they weren't prepared from, and you actually got a good conversation out of them. Those things are great, but again, Opus Pro, going back to that, snippet the bits, get a little bits of it, and put those out, get people engaged before the show comes out. Don't just put it out the day before and expect just because you've got an audience of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people on LinkedIn that people are going to just come and listen to it, because chances are they're not. They've heard what you've got to say on LinkedIn, they're not that interested. But if you've got somebody good on the show and you talk about something that is genuinely interesting, people will come. The more you put out as well, people will come. If you put out the first episode and 50 people listen to it, fucking great. That's amazing. Don't take numbers to heart. We ended Clarity with an average of 20,000 listeners an episode. We did not start there. We started at like 50, went to like 200, dropped to like 70. Like, it happens. It depends who you get on. But if you put it down to numbers, it has to be successful every episode to continue doing it. You're in the wrong game. You really are. But going back to that, if you want to get it out there and get people engaging with it, just give them a teaser, give them something to engage with. Don't just tell them that you've got this person on, it's going to be a great conversation. Show it's going to be a great conversation, prove it.
Perfect. So question for Joe and Emily, both having recently launched your own podcast. I suppose the two main questions really is...
Didn't listen, didn't come to my talk, did you?
I suppose what's been your biggest lesson from it so far? Because I think that you're both sort of around like the 10, 15 episode mark. And has it been driving any results, or have you been seeing any kind of initial positive, feedback from doing it?
Yeah, I think first off, I better order my £50 mic off Amazon. But no, we started the podcast because we wanted to have more conversations with people that were responsible for sales and marketing within traditional businesses. And those people that are perhaps in their late 50s and 60s, they almost get slightly defensive when they have a late 20-year-old telling them that they need to change this and that about their marketing strategy. So first off, it allowed us to have conversations, unfiltered conversations with people that we would like to perhaps work with and had influence in our industry, to then understand the types of things that they were looking for, the challenges that they were having, and then on the back of that, we started to develop a reach outside of just the people that we were having conversations with, and the new business that came from it was a positive thing, but it wasn't necessarily the original intention. And I'd agree in terms of the guests that you have on, it just has a massive influence on the outcomes of specific episodes. And something that we found particularly effective was almost creating a promo pack prior to that event to give to the guest. Things like a sort of a cover image that they could post on LinkedIn, or other channels are available. Things like clips, the trailer, and almost just giving a bit of guidance around how to promote it themselves. Because again, in our industry, many people aren't used to engaging in that process or doing it.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the mistakes we made when we did ours a little while ago, was we were trying to get people who were not, say, our ideal customer or people on to like chat for as well. It was a lot too many kind of agency friends or other stuff like that. So it turned into a bit of like a internal thing for that, which was kind of appealing and would be good for them to listen to, but not so much for, say, an in-house marketer or someone on that side of things who's kind of, either a one-man band or one-person band and trying to do things all themselves and bits like that. So yeah, I think picking who the guests are is an important part of it. Like, I think a lot of people overlook and don't kind of take time to be like, is this the right person to have on, and does this appeal to the audience as well?
So something I'd add on the back of it is, obviously we consider it as like a top of funnel type activity, an activity to generate that initial interest. And this is perhaps frowned upon by die-hard podcasters in terms of a reason to do it. But what we had is people coming to us later on down the sales process that had a listen to it, really enjoyed the conversations, and it just added that element of credibility and authority that we didn't necessarily have in the same way before.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well, it's like, because a lot of the metrics are hidden from the public, unless you put it onto YouTube, no one really knows how successful it's doing, unless it's kind of, I don't think like Podbean sometimes has a counter there or something, but a lot of the time if it's on Spotify, unless you see unless you have lots of ratings, that's the only way you can kind of tell. But I think even with that, like a lot of the time you can, if you are pushing it out on LinkedIn or channels like that, like that engagement alone from the podcast is good as well. It's just a nice bit of mix of content to put in your weekly kind of posting as well. So Emily, how have you found it so far?
No, we are under the spotlight now, aren't we? Hey. So, started the podcast, Black Panther, Into the Wild with Business. And the reason why I chose the title Into the Wild with Business, because to be quite frank, I get so frustrated when you see so much bullshit. Oh, we're all dropping the poo word today, aren't we? Right. When you see a lot of that on LinkedIn, social media, and, become a millionaire in 30 days, buy my course. And it's like, people are like, shiny object syndrome. And what I wanted to really highlight was that if you actually go behind the scenes of real wholesome business founders, leaders, owners, here's what real life looks like. And I just don't think there is enough honesty out there. I've been doing business for 11 years. I can wholeheartedly tell you, and I think if everybody in this room was honest, there's days where I've gone, I'm off. I've had enough. You think, seriously, am I crazy for doing this? And I think we all have those moments. But then you go online and you think, I'm just being lazy. I'm just not doing the thing that it seems everybody else is doing. So I really wanted to hone in on this and go and pick out people who are masters, and I call them the king of the jungle or the queen of the jungle, for the thing that they are a ninja at, because people are already following them and think, oh my God, all hail ye. So I'm like, get on the podcast and I ask one question, what is your superpower? And what's really nice is the conversation then just flows. And it's a conversation between two people, two humans. We're just human beings. That's it. We all are. Where people go, do you get nervous when you go and speak to, such and such who's the big wig at whatever? And I'm like, no, he's a human. She's a human. And they have real lives behind the scenes. So I love these keywords that's like raw, unfiltered, honest, truth. Because what that does then, as a whole collectively for society, and the listeners especially, is that they don't sit there going, I'm failing because I'm not doing all of this rosy shiny shit. When really they listen to someone who has worked like Billio to get where they've gotten to. But guess what? They have this weird quirk, or they have days where they're not on, or this is what their life looks like. And what happens is that person who was giving themselves a really hard time goes, I see myself in that person. Oh, wow, and they're a huge success. Oh, God, I had a really shit day too. But I also had a massive high. But I've also had a really wanky client who's literally could have, caused a lot of damage to my business. But then I've had an amazing one. Like, you end up going through so many different areas. And that's the whole drive for me, is getting raw, honest conversations with people who are happy to be authentic and not just go, ta-da, here's my polished. Yeah, and it's great. And so far, so good. People are saying to me, I love it. There's no fluff, no rubbish. In fact, it got me doing a guest speaking gig because somebody said to me, I love your no BS approach, and you just see the human. Yeah. So I'm like, cool, I'll keep having a crack at it.
Nice. Perfect.
See what happens.
Well, slightly offended I've not been invited on it yet, but we will maybe.
I feel like we should do like a tete-a-tete. Thank you for having me in Manchester. Steve, would you like to be my next guest?
I think of my superpower. Jeez, I need some time to prepare. Perfect. Yeah, thanks a lot. So, Emma, I know you were doing a lot of work in the public sector, so it'd be good to hear kind of how does lead generation differ between the public sector and the private sector?
It's totally different. So when I worked for SaaS companies, it was amazing because we just bribe everyone. It'd be like, you want to do a demo, 75 quid voucher, do a free trial, do this, you get 500 quid, it's great. With the NHS and people like just any government body like that, you can't even give them like a £5 voucher. You can't say, here's a Costa Coffee voucher, you know, drink something on us while you watch this webinar. You cannot do anything, they're ridiculous. And a lot of it is obviously lifesavers, great people, unbribable, which is really hard as a marketer. So a lot of the stuff we do as well, because they're quite big projects, are on tenders. So that either they know who you are and it's great, or they're anonymous. And then you think, great, how am I supposed to lead gen for an anonymous tender? So what we have to do for a lot of the public sector people, these tenders are huge and they take ages. Luckily, we've got a team that do it, so it's not really my problem. But you've got to do a lot of like social responsibility questions. What do you do for the environment? So what are your accreditations? And these accreditations are expensive to get and they're really labour intensive, but you've got to have them. We've got to answer questions on like, how do you support women in tech? How do you support, you know, neurodiversity? How do you support people returning to work? How many people go to client meetings on a bus? Like how many people drive there? So you've really got to become, I think, a value-driven, purpose-driven business to be able to work with the public sector. Like I know for some of the smaller things, they'll go out to tender, it doesn't matter that much. But if you're working on the really big projects and you want to work with them long term, you really need to become a socially responsible business. We, for the last 20 years at Aire Logic, have been primarily NHS. I say like 90% of our business is from there, and it's repeat business because they know who we are now. But because we've had to invest so much in becoming a company that they'd want to work with, like we're tech for good anyway, so we only work for people that like work for the greater good. That's like quote Simon Pegg there, but we wouldn't be able to work with them if, for example, we also worked for like an arms dealer. But we've, which we wouldn't anyway. But you know, I'll say oil and gas, for example. If we worked for oil and gas, we wouldn't necessarily be able to work with them. But also, they're very much, they love the events as well. They'll go, although you can't bribe them, they will go to anything that's free. So they would come for a free breakfast, or they would come and like get all your pens at an event. So I'd say traditional lead gen doesn't work with them so much. Things like email, no matter what email platform you're using, it will go to spam if you're trying to email anyone from like local government or in NHS. So you've got to be more clever with it. Like for one event that's in January, we're actually hiring a blimp to fly over the XL for 3 days to the event with our logo on it. We're hiring people to walk around with like digital billboards on their back, which have sort of our logo and a little bit about us. And then because it's January, it's going to be raining. We're handing out branded umbrellas and then giving out sort of QR codes on little bits of paper so people can like scan us. And when they take pictures of the blimp, they will get the little QR code pop-up thing. So I think you need to be a little bit more creative with them. You can't stick with the traditional, like, I'm going to send them an email because they're not going to get it. So I've really rambled on here, but I'd say you can't bribe them. They're not going to get your emails. And just try and think outside the box a little bit.
Something you touched on there as well was like they, you know, now that the company's been around a bit and you get a lot of work from the NHS, they know you quite a bit now. Has that changed your approach to your marketing with them, that they do know you a bit now compared to, say, previously when they didn't have much of an idea about you?
Yeah, I'd say we've always been very referral driven with them, but we are moving into like other areas now. So it works in a way where they could go, oh, they worked on this project with us. Like, for example, we built, you know, like when you booked your COVID jabs, we built that tech for them in 5 days. So they say, oh, well, they worked on that for us. They're great. We've worked on so many projects. They just come to us. But other times when it is anonymous tenders, that doesn't really help. So they can sort of recognise us a little bit when you do your little company bio, but you can't say your name or any employee names. So that's where the social responsibilities, value stuffs come in.
Yeah, perfect. Joe, question for you. So you talked about a lot of different tactics here, so like podcasting, pre-conference events, webinars. How do you work out what's right for your clients when you start working with them, and kind of how does that process look?
Size of their budget. No, I think that's a good question. A lot of the businesses that we work with, any modern marketing strategy feels to them like you've just discovered fire. So I think what we have to consider as an agency that works with those businesses is like where they're at on their journey first off. Like if we go in and we provide a plan and a strategy that's appropriate and relevant for a business that's maybe 5 years ahead of where they're at, they're just not going to go for it, and they're not going to get started with it at all. They're going to be scared off. So I think initially you have to get that buy-in from all of the stakeholders involved to almost commit to taking the first step on that journey. So then the question is, okay, what is that first step? What does that first step look like? And we start off by really understanding the types of objectives that they want to achieve. We need to understand what the status of their current sales and marketing within the business is, and really digging deeper about the types of realistic benefits that marketing can provide. It's not a silver bullet that's going to take their pipeline from zero and the business is crumbling to millions in a few months. They have to commit to that journey. So after we've started defining those questions, we've done our workshops and we build out those strategy documents, and it includes typically a level of baseline activities. It could just be some regular social content. It could be a development of an email newsletter talking about the business's news and culture and updates, etc. But then alongside that, we build out and we run campaigns. So bringing it back to that fire safety company, there was some change in legislation. We noticed that there was a particular campaign that was relevant and was going to work well. So we jumped on that, built out a funnel and a sequence specifically around that on top of the baseline activities. And that's probably the place where we start with those brands.
Perfect. And in terms of, say, reporting and feeding back on the leads that you are generating, or the business that you are generating for this, any tools or software that you're finding most effective for tracking and reporting on this?
So I think firstly, everything has to be really defined. So we use a range of tools like Figma, for example, to actually map out customer journeys and give customers a clear overview of what those customer journeys look like. And when we map those out, we associate KPIs with each different stage. So, and along with that, we've got the channel that KPI can be tracked. Is it in Pipedrive? Is it in the automation system? Whereabouts are those KPIs found? And then we report and review those with them every month. We use a tool called Agency Analytics for the actual dashboards and tracking that we use, but that's fed into from a number of other sources, email platforms, LinkedIn, etc. So yeah, I would say first off, it's really about defining what that journey looks like and the different activities and channels that you're involved in, the metrics that are important at each of those individual stages, who's responsible for tracking them and really holding people accountable to that. Because when numbers aren't where you'd like them to be, people get a bit uncomfortable talking about it, whether that be on our side as an agency. Maybe there's an area that we need to be supporting them more. Maybe it's on the sales side. Maybe their conversion metrics aren't quite what they said that they achieve initially. So having that real accountability towards the metrics is important.
Nice, perfect. And Carl, from an in-house point of view, how are you reporting on the marketing that you're doing? And what's kind of like the reporting cadence? Who are you presenting it into? What tools are you using?
I'll plead the fifth a little bit on this because I don't want to be that marketer that sells his own products because it's the most cringeworthy thing, but we use Bundle. Bundle is a AI-driven insights platform, obviously, but all your data essentially feeds into it. So there's different bundles for different areas of the business, so marketing, sales, operations, finance, all the rest of it. So all our data is fed into that, and then there's AI-driven insights and sentiment analysis and natural language processing over the top of it. So case in point, I could go, what's my best performing campaign in July? And the live board, we don't call it a dashboard because it's all live, kind of changes to show me that. And I go, which channel was the most effective? Where do we spend the most money? What did the audience look like? Where were they based? your male, female, all the rest of it. So it does all that for me. So my job's a lot easier now for that stuff. And then it just automates. So it just goes to who it needs to go to and when it needs to go to it. Don't get me wrong though, I've been completely on the other side where it's all been last week of the month and it's like, right, it's reporting week and like everyone's drowned and it's a bit like, you know, like Inside Out where like all the emotions just running around in your head and you're just trying to do an Excel spreadsheet and you're just kind of taking snippets of that and sticking it into a slide deck and essentially the slide deck eventually becomes like 120 slides and they only read the first one or two. So I think from kind of that side of things, I mean, Bundle's helped a massive amount. There are probably other tools, kind of don't take my word just on that Bundle's the best. It is. It's amazing. He's not used it. But again, talk to me about it afterwards. But I think that I think we're in an age now where there's never been more tools out there to help you with your job. And especially like these AI tools that are out there. I know it's a bit of a kind of dirty word for marketers. And you get those traditional marketers that are like, we don't like AI. You're going down, mate. Honest to God. AI is not going to take your job. The person that knows AI is going to take your job, and they're going to do it so much better than you are. Like, lean into it. There are so many tools out there to help you. I'd lean into those tools. Make your job easier, because your job can then focus on the creative bits and pieces. But also, like, speak to the stakeholders in your business. What information do they actually want to see? They do not want to see 120-page slide decks with all that data on it. They want it just in a really succinct way. Salespeople will probably want to know how many leads came in and how many of those converted into sales. Finance might want to know how the budget's being used. Operations might need to know kind of how to ramp up for these loads of new customers you're hopefully going to bring in. Like, think about who it's going out to and what information they're going to need. Do not keep giving people 120-page reporting documents. They don't read them. It makes you sad. It makes your team sad. And no one wants to spend a week of their lives doing Excel spreadsheets.
I set you up perfectly with that answer, didn't I, in Bundle? And that wasn't even pre-planned. So
I know. I didn't read the document. I'm sorry. I don't.
That was not pre-planned. So, Emily, question for you in terms of, I know you're mentioning that campaign where around putting the ice scrapers out on the cars, you get some good initial feedback from the hashtags, from the buzz of like the paper and the competitors and stuff like that. But how are you then tracking that, is say generating real business results for them and bridging that gap between someone coming in and knowing that it was your campaign that did that?
So there's a couple of things, and I think this is what's really fascinating when it comes down to measuring how your merchandise behaves to you. And typically, a lot of companies, essentially, when we start talking to them about this, they say nobody's ever spoken to us about this before. And I want to give you an example of what that looks like. So there is a global data company that we work with, and they spent £55,000 with us last year. But what we did was we ran a process in the business to look at how their behaviour in interacting and using board gifts, essentially, and the way that we work strategically, how that affected their bottom line on a financial level. So their previous buying behaviour was monthly. So people do this thing, oh, little and often, every month we just need to get this and buy this and do X, Y, and Z. We now have a 1-hour conversation with them 4 times a year. So once a quarter, 1 hour. We then looked at their previous buying behaviour and then the way that we had strategically shifted that behaviour, and they saved, if they had continued the way they would have done, they would have spent £67,000 plus VAT, not the 55, and that was in a 12-month process and a 12-month period. So then by looking at it, and they could see it, so everything was completely transparent, and they're like, wow. Now, if you multiply that across multiple departments, multiple areas of a company, you're going to save, like, in excess. And some companies, they've got 46 countries that they operate in. I'm just working with one at the moment. And we're looking at how we affect a company-wide process. So you take something like that, and we're not talking, rocket science or anything of that note. But when we start to look at how we're looking at a return on investment, there's 2 ways to look at it. Yes, you look at what the return on investment is by the products, and I'll go on to that in a second, but when we start looking at what the return on investment by changing behaviour in a company, 4 hours has saved them £12,000 plus VAT a year in one area. Multiply that by 46. Like, how many people could that equate to it coming into the business? And that's just one thing. In terms of the return on investment, something that we really encourage companies to do. Yes, we did the hashtag. Yes, you can start to see traction, of course. And then they made the local newspaper and people still talk about it. And they have created a lot of business off that. But we appreciate that that one thing isn't necessarily the thing that can be 100% accredited to. And I don't think you can with marketing. You can't say that one post was the thing that meant that won me that piece of business. It will be a multitude of things. They say that it's 7 plus or minus 2 interactions that will mean a brand resonates. So as soon as that person needs something, if you have made 7 touch points plus or minus 2 to that person, it will bank, and they will think of you first when they come to need that thing. We encourage companies to put QR codes on. So going back to, and I use this company as an example, they put a QR code on their products. Each of those QR codes links to one of the funnels and the data they need to capture from the people receiving those products. That is what they track. So then we go back to them and say, right, how did this work for you? Are you getting signups? Because they were otherwise, prior to that, relying on people coming to their stands. Again, we'll just use the example of events, where they would give a business card out or they would give out a free pen. And I'm like, how is that getting you to somebody filling out this form that you've got that you need them to do? And they're like, it isn't. So yes, we improved the type of product that we're using that extended their story, brand story, but we now data capture because the future is in data. So whether it's digital, online, offline, you need to be capturing your data as much as possible. Callum's also been teaching me more about this as well, which I love. But when it comes to any form of, the future is in that metrics and getting ahead of yourself and using AI because it's machine learning, so it predicts what the human brain can't comprehend before you know that you need it. So whatever line of business you're in, if you can capture people's behavior and any form of metric, this is what we're finding. So yes, people think, oh, merchandise, pen, notebook, water bottle. That's just the medium. It's the same as social media post, a picture, a few words. You know, find the way in which that takes on greater meaning, how you measure its impact, and ways that you can add more value to the business. So sure, we could have left it at a QR code, but we did a report and we showed them where we saved them just shy of 18% for 4 hours work. Nice. And that's how you can make things count for companies.
Perfect. All right, any questions from the audience? It's always a hit and miss part. Oh, no. Go on, Ash.
I suppose it's that, again, it's what you're, if your audience are people that engage with podcasts, then you just have to get better at it. And I think sometimes that is pushing back on that CEO that wants to be the host. Should not be the host. Shouldn't be at all. But you will have somebody in the business that can hold a conversation, that is really personable, it's friendly, funny, can tell a story. Ask that person. Like, don't just not do it because you failed once. I've been doing this for 15 years. I failed a fucking lot of times. Like, some funny stories, we'll get to them at some point. But like, there's a lot of failures, and they've only make you get better, and they make you realise what you're good at and what maybe you should stick away from. I think if podcasting is where your audience are and they engage with podcasts and you see that, which really should be the only reason you should be talking about a podcast in the first place anyway, then just get better at it. And sometimes that'll be, if I listen to a podcast, regardless if the content is amazing and the audio's crap, I'm gone. There's too many out there. There's too many good things to go and watch and listen to. Same with TV series and games and all the rest of it. If someone goes, wait till season 2, like, it gets better, fuck that. Season 1 needs to be better. Like, that's how it's got to be. We're limited with time now. Like, I've got a 7-year-old son. Like, my time is booked. Like, I do not have time to go out there and like wait till you hit your stretch and go for it. It's got to be good now. So again, it's where your audience is. If not, like, if you've got engaging kind of people that can write good content, get the good content out there. Do something. Well, don't just sit on it and go like, oh, we can't because we can't afford the mics, or because there's no one that can talk, or whatever. Just go out there and do it. That's a big part of it. Just go out there and do it. Fail, try something else. Fail at that, try something else. Keep trying. I'll respect you more for trying and failing than for not even trying in the first place.
We've got time for a funny fail story. What's the biggest one?
Podcast-wise, so when I joined, so I was headhunted to go to Clarity because of the podcasting stuff. Don't know why, we'll figure that out later. But it was the CEO that really wanted to do podcasting. And he was like, let's do it, blah, blah, blah. So we said, right, well, before we get into the series, we'll record one, which is just me interviewing you, and you can talk to us about how Clarity started, blah, blah, blah. And I went out and I kind of researched a lot about him and spoke to people he used to work with, people that had mentored him in the past and all the rest of it. And I got loads of really good content from it. So go in, got the soundboard, too much equipment, to be fair. But we set it all up and it looks like a proper studio. He's dead excited. We do like an hour and a half of podcast, like filming, really good content. He's crying at one bit because I've got someone that used to be his mentor like 20 years ago that he's not spoken to. And it was just like, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I'm getting promoted. This is, I'm like 2 weeks in at this point. And then he's like, he hugs me afterwards and he's like, that was amazing. Like, I can't wait to get started on this kind of stuff. I went, no worries, I'll edit it and get it over to you. So go out, sit at the desk, turn it on. I listen to it. His mic's not plugged in. Hour and a half, full episode. Cried. Tears, just not even plugged in. And I remember I run my partner to town and I was like, I'm getting fired today. Like, I'm gone. Like, start the car. And then I had to go in like big boy pants time and be like, as soon as I walked in, he was like, you edited fast as well. Like, that was amazing. I was like, faster than you think because there's no episode because your mic wasn't plugged in. And he went, I think you're just perfectionist. Let me listen to it. Didn't take that long because you couldn't hear him. That's all. And his office was glass. He had this like, my door's always open approach, which never fucking happens. But he's literally in the glass office. So I'm watching him the whole time as like, I just see like, he just dreams crushed. And then it took a few minutes for him to come out and I thought, oh, this is it, I'm gone. And he went, so we'll get him next time. It was a really good episode and blah, blah. And I felt that was great. But for 5 series, every time I ever went to go and record and stuff like that, he went, make sure the mic's plugged in. I was like, thanks for that. Yeah. So that's one of the bad stories. There's been loads though. But again, first episode, first thing, CEO makes like 7 figures, and that's a big fuck up. And you come back from that and do 5 series, so anything's possible.
Oh, yeah. So this is where I literally stalked Jet2 hard. It's like anything, right? If everybody was sending a letter with a Kit Kat in and a tea bag in the post, do something different. If everybody's online, go offline. If everyone's offline, go online. Before the internet, boom, offline was your only option, and business did not start in this world in the turn of the century. So we got to get creative. What I did with Jet2 was I knew I wanted them as a client. They're a big hitter in the travel industry, but they've been going for 20 years, #1 in the airspace, and they are like 6 miles down the road from me as the crow flies. So I thought, right, well, why are they using a company down in London for their merchandise, which I'd found out with a little bit of, can I do a little bit of digging? So I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I'm down the road, you need to be using a Yorkshire company, you're a Yorkshire brand. So what I did was, I went and spent about £350, £400 with my manufacturer. I went and got a load of merchandise branded up with the Jet2 logo on. What's good when you've got a big brand, you can get a vectorized logo on Google. Yes, winning quite nicely. So I did that because I thought, well, you know, don't just talk about it, let them see what it can look like. They then became, they were like tipping the edge between being first or second airline, and they got first, and then they celebrated 20 years. So I went and got a massive glass award made, all engraved and done up. And I literally went and drove to where you can sit and watch planes take off. And I sat there and I used to go and have a coffee, and there was Jet2 people coming in and out all the time. And I was like, I malfunctioned and I couldn't talk. And I was like, Emily, stop being a dick. So I stood in front of the fence and I tried to take a picture of me with the plane in the background. I was going to do some crazy random thing there. And then the fence just took over. You couldn't see the plane was this big in the picture. I was like, they're going to think, who's this fucking Yorkshire weirdo? So I literally drove to the airport. I went in the bit where there's big barriers and they're like, what do you want, love, with the big high vis on? And I just said, I've got a delivery for Jet2. No problem, love, just through that gate. I was like, get in. He didn't ask me for anything. So I went in, I just thought, what are you doing? I rang my mate for a pep talk. It's all big high fences, about 15 foot. And I'm there in the car park with some branded merch and this glass award. And my friend went, you've got this, Emily, you know what you're doing. So I got out the car, so I just went over, saw this woman, I was like, hi, I've got something that I want to get in there, how do I do it? And she said, hi, this is lovely, can I see? She was gorgeous. I was like, you're so lovely, thank you, I needed to see you. The universe went, you're going to meet like Stacey whoever first, Emily. So I did that. Then she said, just, you want to go over there? Got there, chap came down, I'm on the other side of the fence, like pleading, going, hi, I've got these things, I need to get in there. And he went, hi, I'm Chris, that's great, I'm going to help you. So I was like, get in. He basically said, give me a name, give your email address, give me your number. It was a Friday. I thought, cool, everyone's knocking off for the weekend, so they're being good vibes. Pick your days wisely, don't go at like 10 a.m. on a Monday morning, FYI. So I picked Friday. And he said, Monday, you'll hear off somebody. And I'm thinking, all right, Chris could have just thrown me a line here. But Monday gets an email from their PR team. Hi, Emily, I hear that there's something that you're trying to get into Jet 2. I was like, yes. Said, come over to Leeds. So I went over to Leeds. I did do this thing on LinkedIn, by the way, where I had then added a shitload of people from Jet 2, put them all in a group chat, because that's what you do. And then I recorded a video of me in the car just going, hi, guys, I think you're absolutely the nuts. So I kept it, you know, the human version of me. I said, I'm taking these into your PR agency because I'd love to work with you, your Yorkshire brand, all this. And I'm seeing people have seen it. I'm like going, ugh, nobody's doing anything. But I'm like, keep going. Went in, met the guys. I did get 3 sets made, so I left one with them, put a Cadbury's cream egg in it. Nice. Anyway, gave them the award, took loads of pictures, and then nothing. So I was like, oh, come on, guys. So then, do you know what I did? I just took loads of really sexy pictures on my mobile phone, got the portrait mode on, so it like zooms in on the cap with a little bit of a blurred mug in the background. All eco, so do your homework. I know that they're all about wanting sustainable products, carbon footprint and all that, and there's loads of policies coming in and legislation. So I just put a post out on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, I've done it. Done it. And I just said, well, put my head above the parapet, didn't I? And I just banged out this email. I spoke from the heart. Well, it caused a stir. Got Jet 2 as a client because somebody then rang me and said, oh, everybody's saying, have you seen that post? Have you seen that post from that lady from on LinkedIn? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I have as well. And I got the whole conversation where people are made a lot of noise, but they said, she's been to this place, hasn't she? Oh, and she's dropped something off at the main house with the glass award. And so all of the other stuff, that was the thing that tipped it over the edge. Got them as a client, bagged 3 other clients on the back of it. I think today, well, of course, that post, but all of the work, I think it's bagged me about 50 grand's worth of work. And Jet 2, we've just done some, of course, branded flip-flops for them. We've just done some amazing, have you seen the Stanley style cups? Yeah. It's the Stanley style one because then you can get the same one way good quality for not as much money as the Stanley style one, the actual Stanley Cup. So it's just one of those things where had I have just kept sending cold emails, had I have just put out a post going, I do merch, that is not going to get me in front of my dream client. So do the thing that people aren't doing. If you genuinely want a dream client, if I put a gun to your head and said, you've got a week to get this and make it happen, you're going to get creative as shit. You are going to do it. You're going to go, right, you know, my back's against the rope. How am I getting from A to B? You will do it. And I did that. I thought, if I've got one chance to go for this with Jet 2, don't be afraid to look like a bit of a dick and go. And I tell you what was mint. When I went and got the first order, I hand-delivered it because I knew, get in the building, so that's the next thing. Don't just let your delivery company go drop it off. Great. I got in the building, took some free stuff, got chatting to the PA, didn't I? To the bigwig, to the CEO. She thinks the sun shines out my backside because I'm not a dick. And I genuinely spent time just asking her how she was, how's things, what do you need, what's good? And she started showing me, she was like, well, we've been getting this merch and it's rubbish. Look at all that, it's scratched off. I'm like, they've got really crap service at the moment. They want somebody better. So she was like, oh, I could have hugged her. She was like, my mum, just gorgeous. Oh. Yeah, she was lovely. So she now makes loads of intros to me to people in the company. So don't ever underestimate the power of being in person. Get out your comfort zone. What's the worst that can happen? You get a great story. or arrested.
I was going to say the security.
This face ain't getting arrested.
The
No,
security
joking.
sounds a bit lax at the airport.
If you're from Yorkshire, that's how COVID started. Come on, no. But the one thing that I would highlight there is that, of course, yeah, don't get arrested. Don't turn up in some wild outfit. But go and just be friendly. I mean, if you were from the south and you're trying to get up in the north, then there might have been, look, love, no, not today. But I sound like them. They're going to let their own in.
Yeah.
It's true. It is true. Come on.
Perfect.
Need to work on my northern accent.
Yeah.
Definitely. Just
We'll take
vodka
some
and coke. Get a ferry.
Yeah, we can go to
How
some
many-
classes together.
Yeah. I've got a new sideline business, teaching you how to speak in the Yorkshire dulcet tones.
Nice,
There we
good
go.
story. I appreciate that.
Thanks,
So,
Callum. I appreciate
yeah,
it.
all good. Yeah, I know.
Emily, just so you know, you're not the only one from Yorkshire.
Oh,
Wait, yes, mate. We
Gravitate
need
together.
a Yorkshire cup of tea.
Oh, I knew exactly what you were saying.
Rich tea, yeah.
it's a fable back home.
Do you need a
They-
translator?
80% of I'm from Manchester.
Do you? Yeah, oh, yeah, mate.
But I know it's called Tactics Beyond posting on LinkedIn, but how would any of you go about getting better results or more results on LinkedIn?
I've just got one point on this. Be yourself. I took a while to think. I thought, oh, this is what I really want to say. And then I edit myself and I think, why? Obviously, I don't want to come across, I'm not going to go brazen and like be offensive, but who I am in person, the digital version needs to be the same. And what I think all too often we all do, we have a version of ourselves where we're about to write something, because that's how we talk, that's how we sound, that's how we come across. And then we do this really crap thing and we edit it right down and then it comes across vanilla. And the people who are on the receiving end, how do they connect to that? So work out who you are and what you stand for, and then go balls deep and just get your message out there, because then you're going to attract your tribe. If you go and be fake, you'll attract the wrong people and you're like, oh, don't even like any of them anyway because they're a bit weird, or they're not my people. And it's true, you're not going to like everyone, not everyone's going to like you. So the quicker you get to that, the better, in my opinion. Get to Marmite fast. There's my 2 cents.
Oh, we're going down the line. I was going to say, if you're attractive, take a selfie. So obviously, none of us here. Sometimes it is, ignore the vanity metrics side of it. Like, just because you've got like 100, 200, 300 likes on a post doesn't mean that's going to convert to that many leads. And I think you can easily tell when pod play comes into it. I think there's that consistency element to it. Be consistent in your brand. Bundle, you're very cheeky, and there's some stuff that I post some days and I think, this is the day, they're going to come. But it's not, that's the brand, that's how it is. It's cheeky, it's engaging, and it's consistent, and you just got to keep putting it out. People, and like I'm saying before, people will get it after the 7 plus or minus 2, that they'll just keep seeing it and they'll engage with you. It's not a quick fix. No marketing is. Anyone that comes to you and says that they'll get you a quick fix and they'll get you, so people go, I'll get you 10 leads. Get me the 10 leads and then come to me and tell me you've got me the 10 leads and I'll sign right now. No, it doesn't work like that. It takes time, but it's getting that brand out there. It's getting that awareness. It's being consistent. It's getting that content out there. It's not going to happen overnight, but as marketers, we want it to. We want to get that engagement, and we think it's a failure if it's not. It's not. You just move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think one of the comments that I would make around that is actually engaging in conversation with people alongside the content that you produce and create. So, for example, building a list of 50 people that you know, either maybe they offer complementary services, maybe they're ideal clients, and just starting to build relationships in the comments with them. Not like, oh, that's a great post, but actually adding some element of value or, something that adds to the conversation. Rather than just like passively posting and expecting everyone to come, also going out there to the platform as well.
Thank you. I'd sort of echo what everyone else has said and really say a lot of, I skulk about a lot on LinkedIn because I like procrastinating. And a lot of it in my feed is either, look at me at the wheel of my Audi, I'm an expert, by the way, I'm 12. Or it's, look at my bright pink suit, these are 10 things I've learned about being yourself in marketing, and they're also 12. Or it's some really like old, boring, fat white man that's like doing some really long, boring posts. So I'd say, yeah, be yourself, but know your audience as well. Like, if I post about stuff, I post about healthcare stuff, for example, because we go for a lot of healthcare people. I'm not an expert in it, but I know people in my business who are, so I'll refer them. Or I'll see someone saying, oh, my ads aren't working. So I'll recommend a guy called Gareth Westhead, who I used to work with, who does our ads. So I'd say, build your networks on there, but also promote people that you know that are experts in their industries. And if, your ICP are like CIOs, I wouldn't, be yourself, but don't post about, oh, I read this great magazine article about cutting your own hair. Like, find something relevant within your industry and post it.
Yeah, I think the other thing to add to that as well, what we found is the most success is the more stuff that we're doing off LinkedIn, be that, say, creating like checklists or tools or anything for our ideal customer, or even, say, putting on this event or, new blog posts going out on the website and stuff. That kind of stuff, then mixing that in with the normal content that we're posting out on LinkedIn works the best. So mixing up that kind of content type and format and just being useful. I feel like when it was not going so great a year ago, it was when it was just every day was like a tip, or it was just like, it was just not something that in depth and like mixing up. It was just trying to just find like something that will go viral or go like, get a lot of engagement without actually thinking like, why is this useful? So yeah, I feel like the more stuff that we've done off LinkedIn and then just repurposing that, cutting it down, and just, especially a lot of the time, you can get some, if you've already written this nice long blog post, get ChatGPT or something like that to say, give you hook ideas to kind of take that long thing and then just bring it, and then bring it into a LinkedIn post. So that's where we found a lot of success with that as well. So
Thanks, guys.
That's ended up being one of the most viewed episodes so far. And I genuinely, I'll hold my hand up, I don't know enough about TikTok for me to honestly comment on it, and I would never do that. But I do know somebody who is very good on it, and he ended up on the podcast. He's called Ashley Wright with a W, and Mr. Wright. I'd never even thought that. That's perfect. But he will go into a lot more detail, and he shares a lot of content, on LinkedIn about how best to use the platform and engage with it. And that would be where I would steer you, because that's not my area of expertise.
yeah, so it's kind of like that. What was the decision, say, putting the clips out on YouTube Shorts instead of TikTok, or did you try both and then saw better results on one or the other?
So we did both. I'm 40, so I should not be on TikTok anyway, really. But we did get some. I feel like the algorithm kind of pushes the first few things on TikTok well, and then after that, it's about you going out and doing it. Again, Opus Pro was a godsend in that, because you can edit the clip in the thing and then share it directly from that, which was great. But Shorts was just great. As long as it's under 60 seconds, it classifies as a short. And if you get the hook right, you've got like a massive audience there, and they're already there watching videos anyway. I feel like with TikTok, if you get on the right algorithm, you've only got a few seconds to really capture them. Whereas I feel like with YouTube, they expect to spend a little bit longer on there. So they were just spending longer engaging with the content. And also, I mean, I look rough on that IBM video. Like, I did look like I'd had surgery like 24 hours before. So that probably didn't help matters. And again, it was IBM. It's IBM. We're talking about data governance. It was not really the audience for LinkedIn. But the clips we did get were the controversial ones, where I'm asking about, I think one of the questions was something around, we trust AI for business, but we didn't trust it when we were going to give our kids GCSE results with it. But we trust it on financing our operations and running our businesses and whatnot. So why is that the case? And that got like thousands of views on TikTok. So something like that will, asking about how to implement data governance across some amount of departments, they were like, where's that naked girl doing that dance? Like, that was all they wanted to see from my algorithm anyway. So yeah, I'm all for kind of going out there and asking people that do know it and that are engaged with it and doing really well, asking their opinion. I think with marketers, we're expected to know everything. I barely know my own name some days, so like I generally don't know enough about TikTok, should I say, to have any kind of engaging insight, really.
Again, it's not the forefront in the clients that we work with, purely based on the types of people that they're trying to reach. But from almost peers in the industry, I've heard almost using the comments section to build future topics, using that intelligence that you generate from the reactions to the content you post out, I've heard has quite a positive impact. So again, using that intelligence to then feed back into the content production process is useful. But again, not my area of expertise.
Yeah, I've done small bits of like testing and things on TikTok, so I'm not an expert. But I know with B2C, it's basically just like a shopping channel on our TikTok. Look at this dress, it's amazing. Oh my God, it's 50p now. But like with B2B, I found at a past company when we marketed to other marketers, it was great. It worked really well because it was people in there like sort of 25 to 35 that were wanting to up their knowledge or do courses. We got some really great feedback from it. It'd be top 5 tips, for example. We found if you had something to count down, it kept people really interested. You had to have like a really quick hook. We did sort of bright visuals. It wasn't the case of like if you're sat in a car and you do a quick video, which can work on LinkedIn because it feels really authentic. It doesn't work on TikTok. So we'd have like a really bright sort of text at the top. We'd have really bright visual backgrounds, people wearing bright clothes, captions on absolutely everything, because a lot of people watch it with no sound as well. Drops off immediately after 30 seconds. So yeah, not loads of experience in it, but I'd say keep it bright, keep it short, keep your captions.
Nice. Perfect. All right, final question. Any question?
Can answer this one. So I really like that question. We one of our taglines that we often use is making boring businesses sexy. So anything from like waste management, recycling, industries that people really don't want to talk about. Yeah, that's a tough one. Telling people about bins is always challenging. I think it links in very much to the video side of things and like bringing faces into the equation, bringing story and personality into the equation. An example recently that we had, a client of ours, they produce personal protective equipment, PPE, hard hats, boots, etc. And they launched this hand protection range called EcoVibe. It's really sustainable, like cutting edge in the industry. Not many other distributors sell it. And they were having really great success around the boardroom table, telling the story about the product and getting across the message. But what we found in their marketing was it just wasn't landing in the same way. People were still asking the same questions that they can address in 30 seconds, in the boardroom. So we had to ask the question, okay, what can we do? What can we change? And we started to produce some relatively short videos based on the questions that were coming up in the boardroom. Sales team would note them down in their sales meetings, and that then formed the basis for that content. And it wasn't overly produced. It wasn't too heavily edited, but it just simply told the story in the same way. And then the sales team, as well as using that as organic content, they were using it as assets to address the questions that they were being asked in the sales process. So they would send those videos that were hosted during the sales process as well. So people, personality, identifying the questions that people really have and responding to them in an engaging way.
Yeah, because I think that's an important thing. Like, there's so many times where a client's approached us, we'll look at their website and look at their content, like, oh my God, like, what are they saying? Like, they're no character, it looks rubbish. Then you go in to meet them and you do a workshop or you speak to them, you have these meetings, you're like, oh my God, like, these are a great bunch of people and this stands out. Like, why are they not talking about this? Or it's like, okay, they're a really good charismatic founder with like a long history of this and they've always worked in it and stuff. And it's, there's always something there, and it's always cliche to be like, oh, B2B is boring, but when you actually go and speak to these people, as you said, it's like people are people and they have these characters and you just need to pull that out of them and let that shine, be that kind of, the cocky person or someone a bit more like knowledgeable and helpful.
In those types of industries, you can take the risk as well, because the general consensus is that everyone does things the same way. It's the way that it's been done for 20 years, 30 years. It's stale, it's static. And you can take the risk and it doesn't have to be perfect for it to work. You can do small changes in strategy and they can cause you to stand out significantly from others that are just typically doing the same thing. What we have noticed there though, is you get a lot of copycats. So you have to kind of plan what you're going to do next on the back of it. You can't just run a campaign and then sit back and do nothing. We've seen people copy a certain like LinkedIn newsletter, exact headlines that we've used. It is quite a copycat industry because you don't have the creative background in those businesses to be able to then do things differently.
Nice, perfect.
I was just going to give an example here of take an industry, sorry Ellis, but because I know you're absolutely mega when it comes to accounting, but we all fall foul of this. We go to an event and somebody says, oh, what do you do? And the first thing out of our mouths is to say the thing we do. So let's say, hi, I'm an accountant, or whatever, you know, or hi, I deal with data. Sorry, this is like, God, take this out. Rather than focus on the thing which has come up a few times today, if it's a bit dry, and sometimes it's only dry because it's a really intricate area or industry that in the main, a lot of people don't have insight into that world unless it's something that you have studied. And so I say focus on the problem you solve and use that as your way in. So using the accountant example, Ellis could spin that, and I'm sure that he has got a million options and ideas up his sleeve, because if you're not following Ellis already online, you should, on LinkedIn, you should be. Sorry, Ellis is like, oh, get me a coffee, I need to, yeah. But take the whole view of what problem do you solve. So Ellis could say, well, actually, I save people enough money every quarter to afford them an extra holiday a year. So then the product he would give to somebody is something linked to holiday or travel that makes us feel on a personal level like insanely good and emotionally connected to something that is an area of our lives where we light up. So take something dry, take something that doesn't always feel sexy. Don't focus on the industry, focus on the problem you solve. Lead with that as your driver, because 9 times out of 10, the problem you solve is going to make somebody feel good on an emotional level. And when you get an emotional connection in marketing, you buy. You go online, you Google search because you've got a pain, you need a solution, you look for someone to solve it, you find the best person who can solve it that appeals to you and resonates with you. So focus on that to turn something that feels a bit stagnant into something exciting. And if there's a way to understand whether your business is in one of 3 areas, think of it like a steak. Is your industry well done, medium or rare? If it's well done, you've got a bit more chance to cut through the noise, because people in that area might be like, well, we do what we've always done. If it's rare, it might be a bit newer, agile, so you might have to do something super creative. Maybelline did this amazing thing where buses drove around with the mascara, the eyelashes, and they had the mascara brush sticking out of the building. So when they went past it, put the mascara on their eyelashes. Okay, makeup is a well-done industry, but certain technologies, they're so refined then within that area that you want something rare that pops. So it's about finding where you add the value in the problem you solve.
Nice, perfect. Yeah, good thing to end on. So yeah,
cool.
Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you very much. All appreciate your time. And yeah, small round of applause for the lovely panel as well.